The old guitar in the pawnshop window had a crack running along its side, but to 16-year-old Ethan, it looked like treasure. He pressed his forehead against the glass, his breath fogging up the window as he stared at the 6 strings that shimmered faintly beneath the shop's dusty lights. For weeks, after delivering newspapers and sweeping floors at the diner, he had walked past that window, each time lingering a little longer. He knew the guitar wasn't perfect, maybe even broken, but to him, it was hope. And hope was something he hadn't had in a long time. Ethan lived in a rundown trailer on the edge of town with his widowed mother. Life had not been kind to them. His father, a factory worker and part-time musician, had passed away suddenly 2 years earlier, leaving behind unpaid bills, a mountain of grief, and Ethan's aching memories of the nights they used to sing together. His mother worked double shifts at the diner just to keep food on the table. Ethan, too, picked up odd jobs, slipping whatever few dollars he could spare into a jar he kept hidden under his mattress. The jar had a label written in his father's shaky handwriting, for the dream. The dream was simple, to make music. Ethan didn't care about fame, or money, or applause. He just wanted to play the songs his father loved. The one that always lingered most in his mind was Hotel California. He remembered how his father used to close his eyes when the intro played, his fingers dancing effortlessly across the frets, his voice carrying the melody like it was woven into his very soul. But Ethan had no guitar. One rainy evening, after finishing his shift at the diner, Ethan ducked into the pawnshop. He had finally saved enough crumpled bills to cover the price tag. His hands trembled as he placed the money on the counter. The shopkeeper, a gruff old man with kind eyes, studied Ethan for a moment before sliding the guitar case across the counter. "She's seen better days," he warned, "but sometimes, broken things make the most beautiful music." Ethan carried the guitar home like it was made of glass. He spent nights teaching himself to play, watching old tutorial videos on the diner's Wi-Fi and practicing until his fingertips bled. There were times when he grew so frustrated he nearly gave up, but then he'd remember his father's voice, "Music isn't about perfection, son. It's about heart." Months passed. Ethan's playing improved, though he kept it to himself. Music became his secret sanctuary, the one place where grief softened and dreams felt alive again. His mother, though exhausted from her endless shifts, sometimes paused in the doorway, smiling quietly as she listened to her son strum under the dim yellow light. One summer afternoon, the town announced a local talent competition. The grand prize wasn't money or fame, but something priceless to Ethan. An opportunity to record a song in a professional studio, with mentorship from a well-known music producer who happened to be visiting family in the area. When Ethan saw the flyer tacked to the diner's bulletin board, his heart raced. But doubt crept in almost instantly. Who would want to hear a poor boy with a cracked guitar? Yet something deep within whispered that he had to try, not for recognition, but for his father, for the dream. The night of the competition arrived. The town hall was packed with neighbors, families, and curious onlookers. The air buzzed with excitement as performers sang, danced, and showcased their talents. Ethan waited backstage, his guitar resting in his lap, his palms sweating so badly he could barely hold the pick. He wore his only decent shirt, a hand-me-down that was slightly too big, and a pair of scuffed shoes. When his name was called, the room seemed to shrink around him. He stepped onto the stage, the lights blinding his eyes, and for a moment, silence pressed down like a weight. Some people in the crowd whispered, "That's the boy from the diner, isn't that the kid whose dad passed away?" Ethan took a shaky breath. He placed his fingers on the strings, and with the first chords of Hotel California, the room changed. The haunting melody filled the air, raw and imperfect, yet deeply soulful. His voice cracked at first, but as he closed his eyes, he remembered his father's laughter, his mother's tired but hopeful smile, and the promise written on that jar under his bed. Every note carried a piece of his heart. His strumming grew stronger, his voice steadier, weaving pain, longing, and love into the song. The audience, once restless, fell utterly silent. Some closed their eyes, swaying softly. Others clutched their hands to their chests. And when Ethan reached the solo, though his fingers stumbled once, the passion in his playing more than made up for it. By the final chord, tears blurred his vision. He opened his eyes to see the crowd rising to their feet, applause echoing through the hall like thunder. Ethan stood frozen, overwhelmed. He had expected polite claps, maybe even indifference. Instead, people were cheering, some even crying. His mother stood in the back, her hands pressed to her mouth, tears streaming down her cheeks. Among the judges was the visiting music producer, a man named David who had worked with legends in the industry. David wiped his eyes before leaning into the microphone. "Ethan," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "you just turned Hotel California into something I've never heard before. You made it a masterpiece. Not because it was flawless, but because it was true. And that's what music is all about." The audience roared again, but Ethan barely heard them. He only saw his mother, smiling through her tears, mouthing the words, "Your father would be so proud." Ethan won the competition that night. But more importantly, he gained something greater than a prize. He discovered that even a poor boy with a cracked guitar and a heavy heart could move people with honesty and courage. The recording session was surreal. For the first time, Ethan heard his own voice played back through studio speakers. David guided him gently, reminding him not to chase perfection but to sing with the same sincerity he had on that stage. When Ethan's version of Hotel California was shared online, it spread faster than anyone expected. Listeners from across the country commented, calling it haunting, soul-stirring, and the most honest cover they'd ever heard. Strangers sent messages saying his music helped them through grief, heartbreak, and loneliness. Ethan realized his father's dream hadn't died with him, it was alive, flowing through his fingers, reaching hearts he'd never met. In time, Ethan saved enough to buy his mother a small house, lifting her out of the trailer park. He never let fame change him. He still swept floors at the diner sometimes, not because he had to, but because it reminded him of where he came from. He donated instruments to kids who couldn't afford them, telling each one, sometimes, broken things make the most beautiful music. Years later, standing on a grand stage before thousands, Ethan began his concert the way he had in that small town hall, by playing the first chords of Hotel California. The crowd sang with him, their voices rising together in unity. Ethan smiled through tears, knowing his father's spirit was in every note. And in that moment, the poor boy with the cracked guitar was no longer just a dreamer. He was proof that hope, love, and music could turn even the hardest pain into something timeless.